Hello, viewers. Today is Sunday, October 27, 2024. I'm here to share my thoughts and opinions on the US presidential elections 2024. Yesterday, we discussed about the early voting data from the state of Georgia, and I had mentioned that I will do the second part of that particular early voting data analysis in the state of Georgia. So today is going to be the second part of the data. Today, we are going to look at how this early voting data is measuring up with the counties that Joe Biden won in 2020 and Donald Trump won in 2024, and what we can potentially glean um, from these numbers that's coming in on the early votes. So without any further delay, let me go and start the presentation. Okay, there we go. This is the representation of the 2020 results, where the counties that Donald Trump won are marked in red, and the counties that Joe Biden won are marked in blue. So this is the 2020 result. So now we are going to look at the actual performance of these parties in terms of early voting up until now. This is again the data as of yesterday, 4 p.m. USA Eastern Time. So let's first look at the total number of active voters who voted so far in terms of early voting. 38.2% of the registered active voters have voted so far. And now we are going to look at the numbers specifically first on the top 10 Republican counties, meaning the top 10 counties that Donald Trump won in 2020. Those are Cherokee, Forsyth, Hall, Paulding, Columbia, Coweta, Houston, Fayette, Carroll, and Walton. And these are the top 10 based on the total number of votes polled in 2020 and those that were won by Donald Trump. So if you look at Cherokee, on early voting, we have got around 85,794 votes that have been polled so far out of the active registered voters of 201,631. That's basically a voting percentage of 42.55% on the current, based on the current registered voters count. And remember that as of now, only 38.20% of active registered voters have voted so far. So anytime that's above 38 in this number is very good for the Republicans because they are outperforming the actual turnout. So this is a good news for Donald Trump campaign. But also I want to compare that to the 2020 actual votes. So the actual margin that Donald Trump had against Joe Biden was 56,000 votes. That's a whopping 39% margin. So what does that tell us? Trump is going to win Cherokee if this trend continues or if this data holds in 2024 as well by a huge margin. The big question is whether it will hold. It depends on which region it is coming from. So I will come to that later. So let's look at this margin. It's close to 40%. The total number of votes polled in 2020 was 144,859. But look at how much has been polled already. We still have a little more than a week of early voting to go. We already have 85,794 votes. So that's a whopping almost 60% of the 2020 voters have already voted. What does that tell us? That this possibly tells us that the Republican voters or the voters in that county are very energized. And it also tells us there is a very good possibility that this number, 144,000, is going to be in terms of number of votes. In this election, it's going to increase to probably 160 or 170 based on what we see now in terms of number of voters who already participated. So I see this number most likely going to increase. And if you look at that margin, that is definitely a very good news for the Donald Trump campaign. Again, I'll go back to the place where it is coming from. Then there might be another story behind that story, but I will come to that later. Then you go down this list and you look at Forsyth. Again, this number is greater than 38, so this is a very good turnout. And he has won that by around 33% in 2020, and the margin is also very high. And when you compare it with the 2020 actual voters, 64% of this county voters in terms of the 2020 voters have already voted, which is again, in a sense, indicates that this number will increase most likely at the end of this particular election cycle. That's what I'm hoping for, which is also good news for democracy. Then you look at Hall. Again, this is greater than 38%, so this is also pretty good. And again, he's winning by a very good margin in this county. And again, it's above 60% of the 2020 voters who have voted already. So that's, again, a very good sign for the Trump campaign. Then you go down the list, Spalding. This is slightly lower than 38%. So that's probably something that the campaign would look at, I believe. I think they will eventually catch up, but at this point, it's lower than the average. Then you look at the margin, again, a good margin, close to 30%, and almost 50% of the 2020 voters have voted. Then you look at Columbia, again, it's higher than 38, so that looks good. And the margin is also pretty good. And 55% of those voters have voted. And look at Coweta, again, a good margin, a good vote percentage in terms of it's as long as it is above 38, they should be happy. And then the margin is also pretty good from 2020. And the vote percentage as compared with 2020 is also pretty good in this county. Then you go to Houston. This one, the actual percentage again is good, is greater than 38, but the margin is lower. This is only a 12% margin in 2020, and 63% of those voters have voted. So this is something that we look at when you look at the map and see exactly where this county is located. We're going to look this analysis on all the counties, but this is quite interesting. Then you look at Fayette. It's again a good vote percentage as opposed to the average. As opposed to the average. And the margin is very low. So this is more like a purple county to me. He won Fayette by 6.8%, and the voter participation is pretty good. So we will look at Houston and Fayette and see exactly where they are located and whether there is a story behind the story on this. Then you look at Carroll. Again, this is lower than 38, so they might want to look at this. So they will look at Paulding and Carroll and see exactly what's going on there. And we will also look at where exactly Carroll located, and we will look at that as well. So the margin is pretty good. He is one with a very good margin. And they are elected around 46% of the 2020 voters. So it's still pretty good. I think they will get to 70, 75, I believe, by the end of this early voting period. Then the last one on this list is Walton. And that's, again, a good 41%. It's greater than 38. We are good. You get the idea. And it was a good margin, 49% margin. And it's above 60% of the 2020 voters. So that's a good sign for the Trump campaign. So you look at these counties, and let's go back and look at where they are. Especially we will look at Fayette and Houston and see exactly whether we can look at something that could suggest that something else is going on other than just calling it as a red county. So let's go back to the map. Let's look at Fayette. This is close to the Atlanta suburbs area. So look at this blue area. So this again tells me that this is kind of an extended suburb. Then you look at Coweta, that's again an extended suburb. Carroll, same thing here. And you look at Cherokee, again the same thing. Forsyth, extended extended suburbs. So you look at all these things so close to this Atlanta metropolitan area. So if you ask some of the Democratic strategists, they will say, this is good news for us. Even though it's a red county, this time they are expecting to do pretty well among suburban women. This is an extended suburb of the Atlanta area, Cherokee, Forsyth, Walton. You look at Carroll, Fayette, and so they're going to look at this and say, hey, look, it's not that bad. And then we come to Houston. This is again, look at this blue counties, and they would like to see if they can reduce the margin in Houston. Same thing with Peach. I didn't talk about Peach, but Peach to me is a bellwether. If Kamala Harris does better than Joe Biden in Peach, I think she's going to most likely win Georgia. We don't know. I've not done a detailed analysis on the Peach County yet, but I will come back to that on a different program. So Houston is right here. So again, this is closer to the blue county, and the Democrats must be thinking that there is a possibility of doing better than Joe Biden in this county, Houston. So they might think that, even though Trump is overperforming here, it might be due to the suburban women. Then you had Columbia again. It's close to the Richmond County. It's a blue county, and it's a coastal. It's something that the Democrats, I think, are thinking that they might reduce the margin here. So overall, if you look at it, we got all this: Hall, Forsyth, Cherokee, Walton, Carroll, Coweta, Fayette. So most of these counties that Trump won by a large margin in 2020, Democrats think that they can potentially reduce the margin. And since the early voting is very brisk in these areas, there might be a story behind the story. I do not know whether they can really make a huge impact because of the margin that Trump has right now, at least when compared to 2020. In 2020, rather, he has got a very good margin in Cherokee and Forsyth. Like he has got 39 and 33. In Hall, it's 43. But Democrats, based on this turnout, must be thinking there is something happening in these counties. There is a reason why the voter participation is pretty high. One reason could be based on the theory that the Republican strategists are talking about more frequently these days is Trump is going to the base and he's going to get additional votes in his base areas. And they might point these top 10 counties in 2020 as some of his core base. And they are saying that the voter participation is higher because they are actually getting more of their base voters to turn up. That's one theory. The other theory is, if you look at the location suggests to me that there is something more to it than just an addition of more base voters for Trump. So we will not get the final answer till election day, but I'm going to keep an eye out on these top 10 counties for the next 4 or 5 days and see exactly what kind of vote percentage you are going to see on this last column. And also, in the next time I do this Georgia analysis, I'm going to add a couple of more columns to drill down deep into among those voters who have voted already in these 10 counties, how many of them are, for instance, white voters, how many of them are African American voters, and how many of them are Hispanic Asians, and so on. But also within that, I'm going to see how many of them are women and how many of them are men. In that way, we will get a better idea as to exactly this voter participation increase and the voter enthusiasm. Is that due to the issue that favors the Democrats, meaning the reproductive rights, or due to the issues that Trump is highlighting in terms of trying to talk about illegal immigration and other things, and also is he increasing the number of male voters in these counties who are traditionally going to vote more on the Republican side than the Democrats. So we're going to look at the gender gap. We're going to look at the racial makeup in the next episode on Georgia. It's going to take 3 or 4 more days because I want to look at other states for the next few days before coming back to Georgia in 4 to 5 days. So that's the number in terms of the Republican counties. Now I would like to look at the same top 10 the top 10 counties for on the Democratic side. So let's look at that. So if you look at, again, it's a 38.2% is the actual voter turnout based on the early voting. And let's look at the margin, and let's look at the top 10 counties for the Democrats. I did not obviously sort this based on the total number of votes, but still these are the top 10 counties for the Democrats. Clayton, they have only 31% of the voters, so it's less than 38. So the Democrats must be looking at this number, and they should be worried about this number. So, and then you look at the margin in Clayton. Biden won by around 70% margin. So it's very important for the Democrats to increase this to at least to that average turnout. Actual turnout on early votes among all the counties is 38%, but they are underperforming in this county, Clayton. And then currently 50% of those voters have voted. The 112,000 voters who voted in 2020, 50% or 51% of them have voted already, which is okay, which is good. Still not the levels that Trump had in the 60s. Then you look at Cobb County. In Cobb County, you look at the vote percentage in terms of the early voting. It's 40%. It's above 38, so it's okay. The margin was 56,000. The margin percentage was 14. Not a significant margin, but nevertheless, it is decent. And the total number of votes were 394,000. It's a bigger county. And 52% of the 2020 voters have voted already. Then you look at DeKalb. DeKalb, 39% have voted. It's above 38, so that is good. It's a big county. There are like 497,000 active registered voters there. And so out of which 197 have voted. So there are still a lot of votes that needs to come in here. So this needs to go up. This will go up, I think, in the next 3-4 days. Then they had a huge margin in DeKalb. And so the margin is quite high. And last time, 370,000 voters voted. Now 53% of those voters have already voted here. So DeKalb is another county that they're doing reasonably well, but they would like to see this number go up to 42, and they would like to basically lock in their votes because that's the county that they're really doing well because the margin is 67%. Look at Clayton and DeKalb, it's 67%. Now go to Fulton. Again, it's one of the largest counties in, it's the largest county in Atlanta, in Georgia. And this is Atlanta and its suburbs. And right now it's above 38, so they must be happy with the Fulton turnout. The margin, they had a huge margin. It's a 46% margin, a 242,000 votes margin. They are close to 60 here, so they must be really happy with Fulton so far. And I am expecting that this number 523,000, which was the total number of votes in 2020, I think this will go up this time. My feeling is that this will be close to around 575,000 this year. So let's wait and watch. Then Gwinnett is underperforming from day one. I've been telling that Gwinnett is not doing that well for the Democrats in terms of early voting. It's lagging behind 38%. So let's see if it improves in the next couple of days. They had a good margin there, and it's a bigger county. It's they had 414,000 votes last time, and 50% of those voters have already voted. So that's That's a good sign as well, but still they need to increase this percentage here. Then you look at Henry County. Again, it's 42 is greater than 38, so we are good here. The margin is 20%, and it's also closer to 60% of 2020 voters. So Henry is also looking good for the Democrats. Chatham, it's concern for them. It's only 32%, and it's less than 38. So they had a good margin there. And this is a number that Democrats will be a little bit worried about. Then you look at Richmond, the same thing. And this number is not good for them. They had a good margin there. They need to bring it up to 40%. And then you go to Muskogee. Again, it's not good. It's not even hitting 38. So the last 4 counties for the Democrats, it's not looking good, and they need to increase their voter participation, or the number of votes in terms of early votes should get higher in the next few days. Otherwise, the Democrats will have reasons to worry there. So just like we did for the Donald Trump counties, let's look at the counties that the Democrats, Joe Biden, won. So you look at this, they're doing very well in Fulton, Gwinnett. They're not doing that well. They need to increase. So you see these huge population centers, Atlanta and suburb, they're doing well. There are going to be more number of votes this time. And I think this, along with Chatham, is going to decide if they are going to be able to increase their voter turnout in all these areas so that they can feel comfortable. But the key is this Atlanta metropolitan area and the suburbs and the exurbs of Atlanta. That's going to more or less decide the election, I believe, in Georgia. And in my view, I would say it's still a very close race. Both parties have got enough data from this to say that they can feel optimistic about it. So what does that tell us? It's going to be a dead heat in Georgia. And I generally like these kind of data than the polling, because most of the pollsters are calling all the 7 states as either dead heat or Trump leading by between 0.5 to 1% on average among all these 7 states. But if you look at each and every individual state and you look at the early voting, we can get a lot more information than what the pollsters are sharing right now. And in my view, Georgia is going to be very, very critical in this election. Remember in 2000 election, Tim Russert said that it's going to be Florida, Florida, Florida. But in my view, in this 2024 election, it's going to be Pennsylvania, 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 Georgia, Georgia, Georgia. As of now, it looks like Pennsylvania is reasonably okay for the Kamala Harris campaign, but Georgia not so. Similarly, Arizona looks reasonably okay for Trump campaign, and Michigan is also looking reasonably okay for Kamala Harris, but Wisconsin cannot say anything. Georgia, we cannot say anything, and North Carolina, we cannot say anything. So on my next episode, I'm going to most likely look at North Carolina and see if I can do a similar analysis based on the data that the North Carolina State Election Board can provide. And then I'll come back to you with another episode either later on today or tomorrow. And that's it for me today. I'll come back to you with a different episode either this evening or tomorrow. Till then, take care.